It began on a quiet Sunday afternoon, one of those days when the house sat heavy under its own silence, until my father decided to stir it into chaos. My 7-year-old son, Ethan, sat on the living room floor, lining up his toy cars with quiet precision. He murmured softly, mimicking engine sounds, trying to create a little piece of happiness inside a place that despised joy. The door slammed open. My father burst in, his belt already dangling from his hand. His eyes narrowed the instant he spotted Ethan, blocking the hallway with his toys. "Pick up that garbage. This isn't a dump," he barked, his voice shaking the walls. "Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching from." Before Ethan could scoop up his cars, my father's arm snapped forward, the belt rising like a whip. I leapt up and planted myself between them. "Don't you dare touch him," I shouted, spreading my arms wide. Ethan shrank behind me, clutching my jeans, his small fists bone white with fear. That defiance lit a fire in my father's eyes. He didn't hesitate. The belt lashed my back, once, twice, again, each strike sharper than the last. Leather ripped through my shirt. Pain burned hot through my body, but I bit my lip until I tasted blood. I would not let Ethan see me break. From the kitchen, my mother emerged with a slice of cake, her hair styled as if for an evening out. She leaned against the doorway, watching like it was a show. "Don't ruin my mood with your crying," she sneered, taking a slow bite. "You always think protecting that kid makes you special. Newsflash, he's just as useless as you." Ethan's sobs filled the room. He tugged at my shirt, begging me to stop taking the blows. "Mommy, please," he whispered, his voice breaking. But if I moved aside, those lashes would land on him. I would rather bleed 1,000 times than watch my father carve scars into my son. The belt came down again, and this time I stumbled, my knees slamming against the floor. My father seized a fistful of my hair, yanking me upright, so I had to face him. "You don't tell me who I can discipline," he growled, his spit spraying my face. "That brat needs to learn his place." Beneath us, my body screamed in pain, but I turned to Ethan. "Stay behind me," I whispered, my voice trembling but steady, and locked eyes with him, silently vowing he would never be alone. My mother rolled her eyes, as though the scene bored her. "This is pathetic," she said flatly, "always throwing yourself in front of blows, like some martyr. You think anyone thanks you? You think anyone remembers your sacrifices? All you're doing is wasting our time." Ethan, trembling, spoke up for the first time in his life. "Leave my mom alone." His tiny voice cracked, but echoed with the courage they had never known. My father froze, glaring at him, then raised the belt higher. In that moment I lunged forward, taking the strike full across my shoulders. The crack echoed through the room like a gunshot. I fell forward, my face pressed into the carpet, my back throbbing, the skin raw. But I refused to give them my scream. Silence became my shield. My father grunted in disgust and tossed the belt onto the table. "Pathetic," he muttered, stomping away. My mother followed, licking frosting from her fingers. "Clean up your mess before the guests arrive tonight," she called over her shoulder. "I don't want bloodstains ruining the house." The front door slammed, leaving me on the floor. Ethan knelt beside me, his small hands trying to lift me, his eyes wide and wet. "Mommy, don't leave me," he whispered. I forced my trembling body upright and wrapped my arms around him. My tears finally came, but not from hurt, from fury. In that instant, something inside me changed. My parents thought they had broken me with leather and venomous words, but all they managed to do was awaken something far deeper. My back burned, but so did my resolve. I pressed my forehead against Ethan's and whispered, "They'll regret this. One day they'll regret it all." The days that followed the belt's bite blurred into a fog of agony and silence. Every step sent a throb through my back, the raw welts stinging whenever my shirt brushed them. Bending was hard, lying down even harder, but I refused to complain. In this house, pain was treated as weakness, and weakness was a weapon they used to shame me. Ethan never left my side. He trailed after me from room to room, toy cars stuffed into his little pockets, always handing me the blue one when he sensed I was hurting. "This one's fast, Mommy," he murmured one night. "It can take us away from here." His words cut deeper than the belt ever could. My 7-year-old was dreaming of escape when he should have been thinking about schoolwork, birthday cakes, or Saturday morning cartoons. That was the moment I understood escape couldn't stay a dream. It had to become a plan. My father strutted through the house like a king in his palace. He wore arrogance the way other men wear cologne, thick, suffocating. Every glance he threw my way carried satisfaction, as though tearing my skin had been some kind of victory. But he didn't notice that while my body slowly healed, my mind was sharpening. My mother was cruel in a different form. She never swung a belt, but her tongue was sharper than any leather strap. Passing me in the kitchen while I cooked for Ethan, she'd sneer. "Still limping? Don't let dinner taste like your self-pity." If I served Ethan first, she'd hiss, "You spoil him. No wonder he's weak." I bit my tongue until it bled. Every insult, every lash of malice, I stored like fuel. I stopped answering back. Anger wasted energy, and energy had to be saved for something far bigger. One night, as Ethan slept curled beside me on our thin mattress, I stared at the ceiling cracks and let my mind drift into forbidden territory. Revenge. Not the kind born in a burst of rage. No screaming, no smashing plates, no running off hoping they'd feel guilty. My parents didn't feel guilt. They only recognized power. If I wanted to break them, I'd have to strike where it hurt the most. Their pride, their comfort, their control. I thought about the ways they measured power. My father boasted about respect from the neighbors, his image as a strong provider, a man whose family knew their place. My mother took pride in appearances, dressing up even for small errands, whispering with women who envied her picture-perfect life. To them, reputation was comfort. Take it away and they'll slap. That's where I was. But first I had to heal. Every night after Ethan drifted off, I slipped into the bathroom and tended my wounds in silence, pressing a damp cloth against the cuts. Sometimes my reflection stared back from the mirror, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. But behind the exhaustion, there was something new. Fire. Weeks went by. My parents carried on as though nothing had happened. They laughed louder at the dinner table. I hosted card nights with the neighbors, paraded my sister around like a prize. They mistook my silence for defeat. But I was preparing. I began stashing a small notebook under my mattress. In it, I recorded everything. Every cruel remark, every slap, every time they pushed Ethan aside or kept food from him. I didn't yet know what I'd use it for, but writing sharpened me. I wasn't just suffering anymore, I was collecting proof, shaping a weapon out of truth. One evening, Ethan caught me scribbling. "Is that homework, Mommy?" he whispered. I gave a faint smile. "Something like that, baby." I didn't tell him it was survival. The breaking point arrived 2 months later. Ethan had his first school play, standing proudly on stage, wearing a cardboard tree trunk around his waist. His eyes searched the crowd for me, lit with hope. But when the curtain lifted, the 2 empty seats beside me roared louder than applause. My parents had promised to be there. Instead, they stayed home, sipping wine and celebrating my sister's new haircut. Afterward, Ethan asked softly, "Did Grandma and Grandpa see me?" My throat burned as I forced the words out. "No, sweetheart. But I saw you and you were perfect." He smiled, but I could feel disappointment eating away at him. That night, while he slept, I sat at the window and made my choice. Enough was enough. The next morning, I began small. I spoke less, observed more. I noticed my father always left his wallet on the counter while he shaved. I noticed my mother's phone stayed unlocked, filled with gossip and shallow photos. I tracked their patterns, when they left, who they called, where they tucked away their money. My father loved to boast about his savings. This time, I wasn't going to run. I wouldn't beg neighbors for shelter or pray for rescue from strangers. I would use their own world against them. Every insult, every bruise, every cruel laugh at Ethan's expense had forged me into something my parents could never imagine. Dangerous, not with fists or belts, but with patience, calculation, and rage refined into strategy. The fire inside me had grown too fierce to hide. I kissed Ethan's forehead and whispered, "Soon, baby. They'll never hurt you again. Not ever." And with that, the plan began. The weeks that followed were a quiet storm. On the outside, I lowered my head. I cooked their meals, scrubbed their dishes, and let them think they had broken me. My father strutted around with his usual arrogance, smacking my shoulder like I was a beaten dog that had finally learned obedience. My mother sneered when she passed me at the sink, muttering, "At least you're good for something." They had no idea I'd begun moving in places they would never expect, like the church basement where community gatherings were held, or the library where bulletin boards revealed who held influence in town. I spoke carefully, never about my parents, never directly. I listened. I asked questions. Slowly, I pieced together a map of the people my parents relied on to feel important. Their power wasn't built on kindness or love. It was built on reputation. My father liked to boast of being respected, a dependable provider. My mother thrived on admiration, envied for her home, and her illusion of a perfect family. I chose not to merely bruise their pride. I wanted to tear it wide open. It began quietly, like a rumor carried on the wind. One night, after Ethan was sound asleep, I crept out with copies of my secret journals, pages filled with raw accounts of the torment we endured. I sealed them into envelopes and signed. Then, I slid them under doors, placed them on church tables, tucked them into the mailboxes of those my parents were most desperate to impress. Every letter was deliberate, anonymous, but unflinching, laying bare the truth of what happened behind closed doors. The shift was gradual. Neighbors' eyes lingered longer. At the grocery store, a man who once admired my father no longer offered his usual cheerful hello. At the salon, women who used to giggle with my mother now whispered with sharp suspicion. My parents sensed the chill, though they couldn't trace its source. That's when I twisted the blade. My father had been boasting endlessly about his bid for a council seat, declaring the town needed a real man with real values. I made certain the right people heard the truth. Letters found their way into the hands of the board. No wild accusations, just cold, undeniable accounts. The strikes, the neglect, the way they mocked bleeding children and laughed at our pain. His name vanished from the nomination list without a word. He stormed through the house, slamming doors, shouting about jealousy. My mother seethed about traitors, but it was too late. And still I wasn't done. For years, my mother reigned over her prim tea parties, parading my sister as her shining jewel. That stage was her kingdom. One Saturday, I let Ethan deliver an envelope to one of those gatherings. Inside were photographs, not of the blows themselves, but of their aftermath, carefully saved. Welts across my back, dark bruises on Ethan's arm. Each image carried a neat caption. "This is the family you admire." When the women opened them, silence suffocated the room. My mother's perfect smile fractured like broken porcelain. Guests slipped away one by one, leaving her in disgrace. By nightfall, no one wanted to be seen in her company. That evening, my parents cornered me. My father's fists were tight, my mother's face ghostly with rage. "What did you do?" she spat. "You think anyone will believe filth like you?" I didn't shrink this time. With Ethan clinging behind me, I stood taller. "They already believe it," I told them. "And you can't erase it." For the first time ever, my father didn't raise his hand. He only glared, trembling with fury, powerless. My mother looked like a dethroned queen, stripped of everything she once flaunted. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever known. In the weeks after, they tried to salvage their reputation, but everywhere they went, shame clung to them like a shadow. No invitations, no warm greetings, no admiring smiles, only stares and whispers. Their throne had collapsed into dust. Years later, after Ethan and I had built a quiet life far away, they came knocking. Smaller now, hollow. My father's voice cracked as he begged me to clear their names, to fix what he called lies. My mother's hands trembled as she whispered, "We need you." Just this once. I looked at them the way they once looked at me, like they were nothing. And then I closed the door. Revenge didn't arrive with fists or screaming. It came with silence, with carefully aimed truths, with stripping away the image they cherished more than control. They laughed at my suffering, called me worthless. In the end, it was they who became worthless, untouchable trash in the eyes of the very people they once ruled. And finally, Ethan and I were free. Please subscribe to our channel and share in the comments where you're watching from.